Hello, everyone. Thank you for sliding into our DMs. My name is Dan,
And I'm Montana.
and welcome to Sliding into DMs of Disability. This is episode 7. In today's episode, we will be talking about the difficulties of long-term planning as a disabled person, which sounds surprising. At first, you may not think that it's a topic that is important, but it's something that impacts us a lot more than we even realize. Because I think a lot of us have like all of these long-term plans, like, oh, I'm gonna go do this thing in 3 months, go on this trip, or I'm gonna go uh see this thing with my friends, or I'm gonna go set up this party or something. And a lot of those times for us, it's always tentative or contingent on our health. And it's difficult to balance around that. So right before we started this episode, actually, Montana was bringing up some really good points about that kind of idea of like it's that balance of having long-term plans, but also knowing that they can change just at a snap. So I will pass it along to you and let you have it away, Montana.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, before we started this episode, I was just talking a little bit about plans and how they definitely change. I'm a planner. I've been a planner since I was probably a child. I was one of those kids that had the binders with everything organized, color coded, and so happy for back to school shopping. But with me being diagnosed with autoimmune diseases and a rare disease, it has been very difficult for me to plan accordingly. Yes, we all want to be 100% healthy, but I've realized in the past year that it's not always go like according to plans. Another thing that I've also realized too is to manage my spoons very carefully. Like this week, I have a few graduation parties that I'm going to. Last weekend, I had a wedding. So after work, I'm trying to be very intentional with what I do. Okay, when do I go grocery shopping? How can I do it? Do I need to take a break? So just being very intentional of where to go, like moving forward, so you can maintain like those energies, as well as just letting the people know, saying, "Hey, I would love to make it." Still planning, but I'll let you know like the day of if I can or cannot make it due to my health. Right now, I'm in a good health spot. Finally, over the last like 8 months, it's been a roller coaster. So I'm hopeful I can continue with all these plans, but I know it's sometimes out of my control with how my body reacts to things. So I think it's definitely important to think if you're traveling or hanging out with people to let them know and just be very communicative of, hey, I'm still looking forward to it, but if something does come up, just an FYI, I'm going to get insurance on this trip, or I'm going to talk to a hotel about, hey, how many hours do I have until getting my money back? I know with like Hilton Honors, I think you can cancel up to like 24 hours. And if you cancel like that day, you get partial payment back. So there has been times with hotels that I had to reschedule due to just me not feeling well. And I felt like crap doing it. But my partner kept saying, Montana, this is why we travel this way. So like, it's okay to cancel it. You still get your money back. But we all know how that feeling is of being so excited and then you're in the hospital or you're very sick and you can't get out of bed and you're like, why is this happening?
That self-advocacy part that you mentioned at the end, it's so hard because like you want to be able to have these plans and not have to worry about these last second changes, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a part of our lives and it's something that we have to acknowledge as a part of our lives. If we just pretend to ignore it, it's only going to get worse. And I echo a lot of your organization and planning as well. As a kid, I was very much with that. And I think the one perspective that I had, at least growing up as a disabled person, like being young with it, is that now I feel like I always have like 3 or 4 long-term plans of like the
Yes.
same thing, or it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing in like 3 months. But then it's like, oh, if like I'm not feeling well during this time, then this is like plan B and how we can approach it, or plan C or plan D. And it's just like all of these like different types of variations and how I could still
Mm-hmm.
potentially do this thing. And like the steps I would need to take. And then like the last plan is just like not happening.
Oh my God. I love that. I actually had something very similar. So over the weekend, I went to my partner's like best college friends like wedding, which was really great. But the wedding was very close to a coworker's house. I think it was like 20 minutes or something. And I was like, oh my God, this will be really great. Like I work remote. I don't really see many people I work with in person usually. And I'm like, this will be great on like the way back. We should like meet up. So of course we were trying to plan it accordingly and all this. Found out where the venue was. It was 40 minutes away from her house. We were already 3.5 hours from our like home. I was not feeling like fabulous. Like I was okay, but I was running only on a few hours of sleep because we were staying up late, like trying to catch up with everyone because we haven't seen these people in months. And I'm like, I really want to see her, but I also really want to go home and just take a nap and sleep. And so she and I texted back and forth, and I just basically asked, like, is today a good day for you? Because I still have to like drive back. I really want to see you, but it's a little bit further. And she was actually flying out that Monday early. And she's like, you know what? Let's just plan another time. And so we had like ABC plans of like what to do. So we were hoping to meet, but if it didn't happen, we had plans on meeting again in like 2 months. So that made me feel better of not being a complete flake on like my coworker, which I wasn't. Um, my definition of a flake was just not going to the plans. But my partner did tell me, like, Montana, you're not a flake when you cancel plans. You text the people, you tell them what's going on. It's not like you're ghosting them. They understand. But I've always been that person. I'm like, I really, if I say I'm doing it, I'm doing it. So with me having to cancel stuff with like how I'm feeling with my body, it makes me feel really guilty. But I've been trying to get out of that mindset.
Yeah, and I think you hit it really well in that idea of you have to, if it's okay to not to cancel a plan, but it's different if you're not communicating it. Because I think unfortunately on our end we carry a lot of the onus of having to be the communicator with our disability. And if we
Mhm.
are not feeling well, or we're just completely exhausted, or it's just things aren't happening in the way that we want, uh, unfortunately, people are not mind readers and they will think, oh, they're flaking, they're ghosting. But if we are able to communicate that and talk to people, sure, that thought might still be there, but most people will be very understanding and accommodating.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things too where it's like, not only is it just like with friends or with anything, but also like career wise. Like I've noticed for me, like my long-term planning is really focused on like my disability. Like I have a job that I really love and that I enjoy doing, but it's also the idea of like if I wanted to find like a new experience in a new job, and it's like, oh, if I'm going for something, still need to be in a spot that has the job that has really good healthcare, a spot that has really good geography to a great cardiologist area.
Yep.
So it does like kind of also restrict my mobility thinking long term in terms of like career wise as well. And that's something that I have at least recently have been struggling with.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I know I guess before I was like disabled, like when I was thinking of college, I was like, oh, I want to go like live in a big city, try all these new things. I've realized I'm not a city girl. I love visiting, but I don't think I could live there long term. So I'm getting to know myself more. And I realized like over the years, plans do change accordingly. There is sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this was my dream job of working in person in the city. Now, like if I'm at a really good job that I really like, so I don't think I'm going to be changing positions anytime soon. But when I was looking at positions, I was looking at things that are remote, where I don't have to drive for it. I don't like driving to begin with. I also have a rare eye disease that I may have to have surgery later on. If I have surgery, who knows if I can still legally drive? So I'm thinking of all these like things are way, way out in the future that may not even happen, but I'm still thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I don't know. Some days I have really great days, other days, not great. And I'm like freaking out. So I think it's good to be aware of what works well for you, as well as what your non negotiables are, especially for a job, like you were saying. trying to stay in that triangle area of some sort of, okay, where is like my doctor's? Where is it close enough for me to be comfortable? Am I making enough money so I can pay for my medical bills? Yes, health insurance is fantastic. We love health insurance. We love a FSA and an HSA. So if y'all have that, please use the FSA and HSAs. Really great tool, but that does not like do everything. You will still pay out of pocket. So you need to make sure that you're getting paid what you're worth.
Exactly. And that is a lot of you really encapsulated what I have been feeling a lot lately, and that idea of like I for a long time thought I wanted to live in a city, DC specifically. And
Yeah.
it turned out for me, like it, yeah, well, it would have been convenient in terms of like a cardiologist. The city wasn't for me. And I enjoyed taking my classes online. Instead, I found a
Hmm.
job that is really hybrid and really great for my body and mind. And I really enjoy this setting where I am able to find this good balance, but also thinking that idea of like long term, like where exactly do I want to live for my life? And it's tough thinking like in the idea, like especially as a disabled person, because the thing can change in a day, but like
Hmm.
20, 30 years down the line where we're thinking, oh, like we'll have a partner and potentially
Oh,
kids and oh my
yeah.
God, like it's just all of these overwhelm
Oh.
like being in a comfortable situation where it's like I'm able to cover for myself medically, but
Hmm.
also being able to take care of like tiny little humans and a partner and everything. It's just it's a very overwhelming experience where you just kind of start snowballing it.
Oh my goodness, Dan. Thank you so much for saying that. So I have a fur baby. For those who don't know, his name's Thor. He's 4 years old, just turned four. So of course he had a gotcha day, with cupcakes and everything. He's very spoiled. It's fine. But it's my partner's dog. So I adopted my partner's dog. And my company has really good insurance, and they had like a deal for like pet insurance or something. Like, okay, like, if you buy this, you get a month free, something like that, or like 10% off. So I talked to my partner. I'm like, I think we should do this. And he was kind of skeptical at first. I'm like, well, I've had procedures and like medical catastrophes. Like, we did not plan this. I did not plan on having multiple infections and being sick. And the medical bills rack up even with insurance. And I'm like, who knows? Thor is getting older. We should possibly get him insurance just in case. And finally, we decided to do it. So I did it. He tore his ACL, both of them, probably 3 weeks ago.
Oh
Five
my,
thousand dollars
oh my God.
for surgery. 5,000. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Thankfully, insurance pays for some of it. So we won't have to pay like $5,000 out of pocket. But I'm like, oh my goodness. Me having my past experience of being like disabled and having chronic illnesses made me put like myself kind of in Thor's shoes, being like, okay, he is getting older. He had like one thing wrong with him at the vet when we last took him. Maybe we should just get insurance to be safe. Hopefully, we will just have to take him to the vet once a year. He's been to the vet 6, 7 times this year already, and will be going a lot more because he has surgery next week. But that made me think what you were saying about like having kids. I don't have kids yet, but I do have Thor, and pets are at an expense that I never thought about.
Yeah. No, they can be family. Like I
Yeah.
feel that way attached to my animals as well. I have a cat, I have a snake.
Oh.
And to them they are like my children. Like I love them, I care about them. And it's that idea of like yeah, like long-term planning for them, like knowing that as they get older, they're gonna have medical needs that I need to take care of.
Hmm.
And I think it's something that like obviously their lifespans are sadly shorter than ours, so we have to have that type of thinking. But transitioning that to like having like actual children, like thinking like for us as disabled people, the reality is it's potential that we also have children that have a form of a disability and
Yeah.
being able to support them in the best way possible as well, because it's different in that sense of like I can share my wisdom and experience, but I also feel like I'm helping this person grow. And that's also just like a weird perspective thinking long term.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And another thing with all the wedding talks, a lot of people I know are getting engaged or they're getting married or they're planning on having kids. So I feel like people are in that life cycle right now, which is fantastic. But I feel for me being disabled that I have to be very careful and plan accordingly. I do know like I want children one day. However, I may have a higher risk pregnancy due to the medications I'm on, due to my chronic illness, and may not respond well to my body. So having those multiple plans, like you were saying, Dan, like A, B, C, D, like plan A is everything goes great. Plan B is okay, we need to like fix it. But another thing I've been looking at and seeing a lot of like Americans don't get paid family leave when they do have kids. And I'm like, how does this happen? Like, so you have to plan extra accordingly, being disabled, because if you do plan on having kids, you may have a higher risk pregnancy or your partner may have a higher risk pregnancy. And then when you do have a child, they may inherit, depending on if your disability is genetic, they may inherit it, or they may have their own disability of some sort that skip family generations, because that does happen. And there's just a lot of things to think about. So even with me being a planner, I know I can't plan for everything because something will come up that I did not probably plan for. But I like being prepared as much as I can. But when I'm in like my early 20s, I'm such a planner. I'm like, okay, my like later 20s, early 30s, is this going to be a smart decision for me? So I feel like there's so many factors that we have to think of as humans and thinking of like starting a family and planning that. But then when you're disabled, you have to think of all these other things too on top of that because of our life experience.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better. It's just that idea of it's tough because like we always are told like this envisionistic idea of how our
Mm-hmm.
lives are supposed to be, and like we want to plan that for us, but a lot of those ideas are built upon an able-bodied society, and like you said, like the paid
Mm-hmm.
maternity leave, like for the United
Yep.
States compared to most modern countries, we're are so backwards and so far behind in terms of uh maternity leave, in terms of medical leave, and it's frustrating, especially because also like insurance wise is so backwards compared to the rest of the world. So
Yeah.
such a difficult way to navigate because like I feel like even if it's not a part of my disability, but like say like I just like get in a accident and like break my leg, like that's gonna set me
Mm-hmm.
back. My long-term plans, it could set me back 2 3 years, and that's something that could just happen tomorrow when I'm driving to get groceries.
Yeah. Like no one knows. That's,
Exactly.
I think, the somewhat terrifying part, but also it's good to try and plan as much as you can, but be aware that, hey, I can only do the best I can with moving forward. And I know I've been looking at some information for like long-term disability, short-term disability, and I must have been in the European mindset because I assumed like, okay, if I got in a car crash, like you were saying, or if I got super sick and was not my fault, and like just something happened, let's just go with a car crash. I thought, hey, I'll be paid to recover because I'm doing my job. I feel like I'm doing it pretty well. I'm meeting like all my goals. But no, I was looking into it more. And for this, I think some companies it's like 50%, some 60, then some are 70%. And I'm like, so you're telling me something that's completely out of my control. I get in a car accident and I'm very injured and I get to keep my insurance, but I don't get paid the same payment I've had. I only get I get less because I'm going to be on disability. I'm like, how does this make sense? So I've just been very baffled because my bubble was very like burst this week because I assume that, oh, if something happens, you'll be taken care of for at least 12 weeks. Nope. It's if they approve it, and if they approve it, then you can get 50 to 70% or whatever your company has in their contract, I believe.
Yeah. No, it's so backwards that it's like that you're beholden to these people. And it's tough too, because for us, like I think one thing disabled people struggle with a lot is that sense of having control because
Mm-hmm.
we have almost no control about our bodies, our minds, our anything, control over society and how they treat us. But we always try to get as much control as we can in the sense of we want to be able to reclaim a lot of those things and being able to stand up for ourselves. And sometimes it could be so exhausting, especially because having that control is such a losing battle in a majority of circumstances.
Oh yeah, I know that well. Of trying like your best and just keep going, but then you're just completely exhausted and almost at burnout that you have to take a step back and be like, okay, this plan is not going according to my plan. How can we turn it around and make it work with where I'm at right now? And I think that's been very difficult for me because I'm very much a person of like, okay, a year from now, 2 years, 3, 5 years, I want to do this. I've been wanting to take a certification class for a very long time. It's like an 18-month program to be like a certified life coach. Right now, I'm a student success coach, and I've been doing that for over a year. So I have like credentials for that, but I really want to be a life coach as well as like a financial coach. And with the program, it takes 18 months. And I've been wanting to do it probably for like 2 years or so now. The last year has been completely lots of downs, to be completely transparent. And now I'm starting to get in a spot where I feel comfortable. Like everything's starting to flow better. My health is looking good. I'm starting to feel a lot better than I have been in like 6 months or more. And I'm like, this is fantastic. And I'm a person, when I start feeling better, I want to add crap to my plate. And I was going to sign up for a class, but I decided, like, Montana, let's wait. Let's not go too far. You've had a good 10 days, a good 2 weeks. That's fantastic. That's an accomplishment. But let's make sure this continues before you add this to your plate. But it's also super frustrating because I know I want to do this long term and I know it's going to be very helpful for me long term, but I also don't want to get burnt out.
Yes, no, you just, yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like we just want to continue, like when we're healthy, like our long-term
Yeah.
plans, we're like, oh, we can cram our long-term plans onto this like 1 month period that we're healthy. And then we
Yes.
just, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy where
Hmm.
we're the ones that end up making ourselves worse.
Yeah.
We got ourselves sick again, whether it's burnout or just mental drain or uh, like our tiredness makes us physically ill. Um, so it's that brutal cycle, and it's so tough because it's that thing of like it's that pressure of if I don't do it at this time, am I ever gonna be able to do it? It's
Hmm.
always that idea of like people who talk about like grad school, for example. It's like, oh, if you don't go immediately, you'll never go. Um, and it's that tough idea of like there's these plans that we have that we want to do, but we're struggling in terms of finding the right time to do it. And sometimes it's that do we just like s- tough it out and just power through, or do we wait? And it's a near impossible question to answer.
Yeah, I was about to ask, do you have like the answer to that question? Because I've been trying to ask myself that a lot. And I think for me, it's to sit back and enjoy what's going on. Because the past 6 months have been probably the hardest I've ever experienced in my life. And now that things are starting to settle down a little bit, well, I guess a decent amount, I feel with grief and when family members die, things change. So I'm adapting to those changes. Um, but I still feel like things are starting to slow down a little bit in my personal life and like my health like life because I'm like, okay, great. I'm starting to get stable finally. I did have a flare a few weeks ago. Thankfully, that did not get me any permanent damage. But with me being on medication, I'm like, great, the flare is now stable. Everything's good. And I just wanted to go, 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 go. And I've realized when I have a few days and just keep going, I fall so flat on my face. So I used to be a person that hate naps, but I took a nap on Sunday before like I made dinner. And I've realized I've been having to do small things like that when I have very busy weeks so I don't burn out. But I would love to know if there's an answer to that question of knowing when the perfect time is to take that plunge. Do you wait until you feel like, okay, yes, I can handle this? But what happens in 6 to 10 months from now? Because let's say I'm taking this 18-week course, 18th month course, I'm completely sick. What do I do then? That I keep playing the what if game in my head and it's driving me nuts, Dan. I'm telling you.
No, there isn't an easy answer. Sadly, I wish that there was like this magic answer that I could provide to not only you, but to everyone that's listening. But it's that idea of what it's gonna sound a little cheesy, but it's like that idea of like what feels right to you in your heart and your mind. Would you rather have that oh well rather than that what if? Would you rather respect your body and your mind? Would you rather um
Yeah.
just take that risk and see what happens? And it's that idea of it's a case by case basis. Your scenario is going to be different than my scenario compared to someone else's scenario. And that's also fluctuating too. Like one scenario that you're facing today compared to 4 months from now could have two different answers. So there's no right answer, like cure all answer that I can give. But I would say it's just knowing yourself and what feels right to you at that time. Because I think it's one of those things that it once you start contemplating it and you need to find an answer, there's one thing that I always love to do is like I'll get like a quarter and I'll say like heads is I'll do this, tails I'll do this. And
Mhm.
when I flip the coin, like when it's in midair, I'm like, what is it gonna like which one am I wanting it to be more? And that kind of makes me like realize which one I want to do.
Okay. Yeah, I've done that before. Being like, okay, what do I want to do? Like, flip the quarter, or I do like meeny miny mo if I can't
Oh
decide
yeah.
on some things, which don't know if that's like the smartest thing. I do that mostly for like cooking, being like, okay, I don't know what I'm feeling. These are the ingredients I have for both. Eeny, miny, mo. Let's see. It's gonna be a fun game. But yeah, that's good to know. I think where I am right now, I'm content with finally having some calm after the storm and figuring myself out more and like figuring like what works well for me and what do I want to do like moving forward because I used to really love working out and doing that and I haven't done it in like a while. I of course like walk, but I didn't do like cardio and fitness classes like I used to because my body just was not there. I just kept getting sick with infections and illnesses. And I'm like, I can barely walk. But the last few weeks I've been getting into it and I've really enjoyed that, but I've also found myself being hard on myself too because I had like a plan of oh like a year ago I was going to be able to do this exercise at this time. Let's say like oh I'll be able to do a plank for like 2 minutes. Now I'm starting back to square one because I've been out for a few months due to being sick all the time. And it feels great that I'm like back exercising, but I also have somewhat unrealistic expectations for myself that I'm trying to get rid of, being like, okay, yes, this was my plan, but hey, I've changed and adapted since a year ago from this plan. It's amazing that I'm still working out even though I've been through this. So, what would you say about flexibility? Like, what has been helpful for you to be flexible when you've had some really good
Hmm.
days, also a really bad season in life? Because I feel like I've been a little bit harder on myself than usual. And I know possibly some viewers have felt the exact same way of trying to get back into their journey after being sick for a long period of time due to their disability.
Yeah, no, it's so hard to get back into it because I think it's one of those things where it's like the second something doesn't start going right, or there's a backslide, or there's a setback that we we start feeling that doubt creep up. Like, can we actually do
Hmm.
this? Is it worth doing it? Is it something that is just unattainable now? And I think like
Hmm.
going back to your like workout thing, like there's probably times where like in the past, like 5, 6 years ago, you were able to do something completely fine, like a workout, and then
Hmm.
like you did it 2 weeks ago and you're just completely gassed, like after just doing it a short while.
Yep.
And it's like, what's even the point? And it's that thing of that there's it's always a process, our plans, our long-term plans, and that there's going to be bad days, there's going to be really good days, but it's important that you just stick to that process and that you are trying to do it, because I think it's one of those things where I'd rather be trying to get to my long-term goal and not
Hmm.
succeeding than not trying at all and just giving up.
Yeah, that's definitely good to know. I know with a few videos I do like on YouTube mostly, or I do like my own workout for like yoga, um, that I do modifications for it. And before I would like never catch myself doing modifications. I'm like, oh no, I'm just gonna power through the pain. Who the freak does that? Like I did that a lot. And I realized through like me doing more intensive workouts now that okay, I have pain in like specific parts of my body. How about I modify it? It's not supposed to feel like this. So I think the whole theme kind of this like podcast as well as like planning is modifying. If that's for working out, if that's for doing a certification, if that is for your long term or short term goals, being someone who's disabled, we will have to modify our plan. Hopefully, not modify it all the time, but we will likely have to modify it to where we are in that season of our life and understand hey, we're going to keep modifying it, but that means we're growing. Even though it doesn't feel like we're growing due to this feeling like a step back, we are learning these values and skills that will help us in the long run even though it doesn't feel like it because it really sucks. Trust me, been there.
Yeah, I think you really touched on that whole theme where I think for I brought up this topic as a thing that we could talk about because for me, I myself have been struggling a lot with those long-term plans, and especially like not knowing where I want to go, what I want to do, and that difficult aspect of it's just very overwhelming to not know or to stress about a future that we may not even want. And I think it's just so important to talk about this idea of it's okay to not know where you are going, or that you might not know what challenges might be ahead this time or what opportunities might be ahead, and to embrace that unknown and to be able to change your plans based on your needs at that current time. uh it would be amazing to know like what the future would look like for 34-year-old Dan, but I don't.
Yeah.
And I know that for all of us, we're just kind of taking it one step at a time in this like blind maze almost, where we're fumbling around, but we're figuring it out and we're building the futures that we want.
Yes. 100%. I definitely feel that maze component of it. And at one point you get kind of lost in the maze, but then you find the way out. So
Exactly.
just keep going through and trying your best. And like you said, the unknown, embracing the unknown, and just knowing that you are capable of modifying it and changing it that to something that will work well for you. I feel like a lot of people can doubt themselves. I know I personally did a lot too about, okay, can I do this? Can I be flexible? Because I would say I was never flexible or I couldn't like modify a plan, but that's all I've been doing the
Yeah,
last few years. So you live and you learn.
exactly. and we're all figuring it out. And I think it's this episode especially has been not only helpful for our viewers, but very therapeutic for us to be able to talk about these types of things that we have been going through. And I hope it
Yes.
has helped all of you viewers as well, because I think it's something that we all are trying to find our meaning in our lives. And as long as we keep our head, embrace the unknown, and we all support each other, I think that's something too. We always need great support systems and a great community. So
100%.
with that, that does conclude this episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. I want to thank all of you again for listening to us. We have been doing this project now for almost 4 months. It's been so exciting. So please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like, comment, leave feedback. We have a Patreon, we have an Instagram, and we would love you all to help join us and help continue making the world a better place for disabled people. And yeah, thank you again for listening. You have anything you want to say, Montana?
Yeah, I was just want to say thank you all so much for listening. And I would love if you guys could like and comment if there is anything that stuck out to you with this episode. And if there's anything that's worked really well for you with trying to navigate planning, especially with as a disabled person. I know personally, I love hearing from other people and brainstorming ways on how we can just be better. So I would love to hear from you all if you guys feel comfortable doing so. If not, that's completely okay. And we really appreciate you listening and giving us your time.
And with that, that is the end of the episode. Have a great day, everyone.
All
Bye.
right. Bye, everyone.